So England versus Senegal is live tonight on talkSPORT from 7. And joining us now to discuss the game is our England correspondent, Faye Carruthers, who's going to have a very late and busy night, I'm sure. But thank you so much for coming in. The inevitable first question is, who's going to start? Who's going to play?
Oh, well, I'll give you the 1 to 11, shall I, right now? You know what it's like. So much speculation ahead of game day, which you always expect. We played so well against Wales, partly because Wales didn't play particularly well, but in that second half we really undid them, and I really can't see how you wouldn't start Marcus Rashford. And you know, we're hearing lots about potentially Phil Foden starting, Bukayo Saka starting. When I spoke to Gareth Southgate yesterday, he very much said it actually partly doesn't matter who starts and who finishes. It's a balance in a way, and there are some players who perhaps are better substitutes. They can get on the pitch and get into the game immediately, whereas others necessarily can't. But this is a squad game. We talk about it every single time we're leading into an England game. In this tournament, the squad is vital. 5 substitutes makes a difference. If it goes to extra time, 6 makes a huge difference. So we need a faster start this time. That is what I would say, because the only fast start we've had in this tournament so far was against Iran.
Well, so I would take it as you think it'll be a back 4, and secondly, if it's going to be similar to the Wales, it's going to be Bellingham, Rice and Henderson in midfield.
I think that midfield worked. It was. We felt more solid, I thought, than we did in the USA game, where bringing on Henderson made a huge difference, and Grealish did, obviously, in terms of an attacking sense. But in terms of shoring up the midfield, I think Henderson's key, and he also, in terms of the last 16, brings experience that, you know, Jude Bellingham is an incredibly mature young man, but we're in knockout football, and he hasn't had as much experience of that as somebody like Jordan Henderson. So to have the experience of Declan Rice and Jordan Henderson alongside him, allowing him to be Jude Bellingham and do what he does, I think would really help.
Well, there's a massive physical presence in the heart of the midfield if you do that, because they're all, you know, they're all pretty big stature-wise, so if he feels that Senegal have an issue to deal with in that area, I could see Gareth doing it. I said earlier that I thought Mason Mount, I wouldn't rule him out, because Gareth has put a lot of trust in Mason Mount.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think Mason Mount is incredible, and that he gets a lot of naysayers because they don't necessarily watch what he does off the ball. And Declan Rice said this in the press conference the other day. Mason Mount is a type of player, isn't necessarily, you know, a sexy forward attacker in that way. He doesn't have the flair or the pizzazz perhaps that other forward players do, but he does the job, and he's versatile. He can go all over the pitch, which I think is vital, particularly if some battles aren't being won on the pitch, and Gareth needs to change the shape a little bit in game.
Well, it's a bit like Jordan Henderson. You know, people sometimes think, oh no, bringing on. What does that mean if you're bringing on Jordan Henderson? But actually, against the US, I thought he was brilliant actually going forward, because there were some dynamic runs that he made that dragged sort of defenders out with him. You know, sometimes we're just guilty of pigeonholing players when actually they can do a lot more than we're giving them credit for.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. And I think the players find that slightly frustrating at times as well. But that's what's so good about this group of players. They're a real collective, and they support each other, and they know that they all have their individual roles to do. And whoever Gareth Southgate picks tonight will go out and put 100% out on the pitch, which is the first thing you want. Second thing is, if it's not working, you have the option to change it, and there are players that can come in. Because I do really feel that of all the squads in this tournament so far, England have one of the strongest, and could potentially, if they wanted to, put a second 11 out that would also do a very good job. But, you know, Senegal are a massive, massive threat. But I know that they've been working, although Gareth Southgate said not any differently, but Harry Maguire kind of alluded to something slightly different in terms of corners, because that's where Senegal have been susceptible, is that the right word I'm looking for? I don't feel like I've had enough sleep in this tournament, and words aren't necessarily coming straight to me.
I've found a few words this trip.
I bet you have.
Yeah, you've made up a few, that's for sure. But what about going forward then, in terms of the options for Gareth Southgate? I mean, some people are saying Harry Kane should be dropped, and that's just not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. He's you know, I talk a lot about the spine of Gareth Southgate's team in terms of Jordan Pickford, Harry Maguire, John Stones, Declan Rice, Harry Kane.
Yeah.
That spine of the team is crucial, and then you can play around depending on the opponent with players around it. Harry Kane was talking in the press conference yesterday. They were on the top table main press conference, and he was asked about his form in terms of 2018. If you remember, he was very tired after the group stages because he absolutely gave it his all, had decent amount of goals to his name, and then was really waning when he came to the knockout stages. He talked about how he's tapered a lot of his training, and to peak at the right time was the phrase that he used, and he feels like he's going to peak at the knockout stages. So yeah, he might not have scored in the group stages, but he's had 3 assists already, and as he says, he's much more than just a goal scorer. He'll get judged on his goals, of course he will. He's a striker, and he's England's talisman, but all the other things that he does in and around the pitch to support the other attackers he's a very unselfish footballer in many ways, that I think we will see top form Harry Kane in the knockout stages, and hopefully that starts obviously tonight.
I wanted to ask you this because not many people touch on this during tournament football, and it's something I experienced myself with Jack Tolton at 2 World Cups, is Gareth. How drained is Gareth as well? Because we talk about physical conditions of players, and obviously Gareth doesn't train, but the mental side, speaking to everybody, dealing with everything, thinking of formations, does a lot of thinking and a lot of talking. How have you felt Gareth has been? Because I'm sure after Euros he'd have been shattered, from all the stuff that went on and just dealing with a squad of players. Do you feel that he really feels like he's on the spot, his mind's in a really good place?
Do you know what, Cass? That's a really good point. I always feel as if Gareth Southgate's mind is completely on the job. But he made a comment be about a week ago, lose track of time out here, where he was asked about, in fact I asked him about the Germany hands over mouths statement, and whether England would be making a statement themselves. And he very openly said, I found it very difficult. My brain can only cope with so much stuff, and he's been dragged away from team meetings to deal with stuff going on the outside. And he said at some point, I have to leave that to the powers that be at the FA to deal with, because his job out here is as England's head coach. So I do think in this tournament there have been things that have taken away some of his energy, but now he's been allowed to fully focus on the football. I didn't feel any different sitting down with him yesterday, that his energy was any lower than it has been. But certainly it must be, and you're exactly right, none of us actually talk about it. He's a human being as well, and it's exhausting for everyone. We're in a very privileged position as part of the media to be able to come and watch these games, report on these games and work on it. But we're all tired as well, because that's what happens when you are literally on the go for 2.5 to 3 weeks. But for me, he puts those players first, whatever they need. He puts that first. That will drain some energy from him, I'm sure, but I feel he's more than up to the task.